And welcome to Hannity. And right behind me, sitting in our audience tonight, are law-abiding New York gun owners. Now, their names and addresses were printed by a local New York paper called the Journal News simply because they are legal owners of a firearm. Now, thanks to the newspaper's president and publisher, Janet Hasten, and Rockland editor Karen McBride, the families of the people right there sitting behind me in our audience have now been put at risk and their privacy completely trampled on. Tonight, they are here to voice their frustration and their fears. We're going to examine what legal actions they could take to fight back against the blatant invasion of privacy. And thanks all of you for being here. How are y'all doing tonight? Let me start with a quick show of hands from everybody here. You've all been outed? How many here have been out? Almost everybody, right? You have not, and you three, so I just want to make sure who has been. How many of you feel angry about what has happened here? Everybody. How many of you feel your privacy has been invaded? How many feel you are less safe because of what has happened? Everybody. All right, let's start. Why less safe?
Well, it's not so much me who feels less safe. I feel worried about my neighbors because now there are people who never even thought about carrying firearms before, and they're very worried. They're worried that their house is like a shopping list for criminals.
Right. From my perspective, there are three people that should be afraid. Number one, those that were identified as not having guns, right? Home invader. If you're a home invader, whose home are you going to go to? Secondly, all of you, if they want a gun, can they steal one? Right? And third, what about police officers? They've arrested criminals? You're agreeing with that in the back there. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Retired police officer. Not only is my life in jeopardy, what about my defenseless family that does not have a firearm?
You deserve better. And we'll get into that in a lot of detail.
Thank you.
Deneen Borelli, your book, you discussed all the threats that you had gotten over the course of the years. You're outspoken, you're in the public.
Right.
We expect that, but what does this mean for you?
Well, this whole thing is just absolutely outrageous. And yes, I've gotten all kinds of comments from people online. You never know how much further they're going to carry those comments. And my husband and I applied for a carry permit.
That's this good-looking guy standing next to you.
We actually applied for a carry permit and we were denied. I mean, it's outrageous what the newspaper did. Of course, we love our police officers. They work hard, they risk their lives, but the police can't be everywhere. And people need to have that right to be licensed and have gun protection.
Was it difficult to get the permit? How many raised your hand? Was it difficult?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How long did it take?
It took us over a year, and we did it when Hillary Clinton became senator. And I said, I don't need a gun. She's going to take our right away. We better apply for a permit. Now we want more guns because the government's trying to intimidate us through the newspaper.
Yeah. You are not one of the ones that were outed, but
All my guns are long arms, so I don't need a permit, but I'm in the process of applying for one. So I can certainly agree with Tom in how difficult, lengthy, and arduous that process is. And the Journal News is making it seem like everybody, look at all these crazy people with guns. All these people who are pistol permit holders went through an extremely rigorous process. They had to get 4 references. They had to fill out a very lengthy application. They had to get approval by a judge.
Over a year.
Fingerprinted, background check. It takes up to a year to get it.
Yeah.
So it's a complete farce.
Let's talk about the Journal News. You raise a good point here, and I'll ask you in this particular case. The Journal News, they claim they're journalists, but I'm thinking, but they won't answer any questions. And did you all notice that they hired armed guards as a result of the ensuing controversy?
That's right.
And by the way, I want everyone there to be safe, as all of us do, right? We all agree. We want them. What's that?
You want the elite safe, especially.
Separate rules for separate
The
people?
elite.
The elite. Well, wait a minute. Hollywood stars have
It's
guns.
elitist, yes.
Right?
But we
protect
are
our
not. We're
presidents, our
ordinary
mayors.
citizens, so we are not part of the elite.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm the New York State Assemblyman for a good part of Putnam County and Westchester, and I will tell you that this has put more people in jeopardy. And basically, they've provided a dream map for perpetrators, for stalkers, for the bad guys. They know where the guns are now, where they aren't, and the FOIL request itself is antiquated because we are now at the crossroads of where the law meets modern technology and, yes, morality.
Yeah, but you know, they did not have to publish these names. Yes, sir.
Sean, I spoke with the Rockland County clerk this morning, and they do exceptional work there, the entire staff. I had asked him if he would mind if I spoke about this tonight, and he said not a problem. He said that when he received the FOIL request, by oath of office, he felt obligated to respond, but he pleaded with the Journal News, both orally and in writing, to not disclose the names and addresses.
Right.
And they said to him, we can do whatever we want with this information.
Yeah, it comes a point. Yes, sir. You're in the back. You want to?
6 years ago, they did this, but the writer at the time, the reporter at the time, his name was George Fitzgibbons. He had the list, and he refused to give them the addresses. So they just printed the name and the town, because his next-door neighbor was a law enforcement officer. He was afraid of, one, somebody he arrested might come and go after his neighbor, and two, what if the guy made a mistake, went to the wrong house, and got his family instead?
That's a great point.
So they went and got a guy who lives out in Queens, so he would have no direct connection with anybody.
Yeah. You were telling me before, and by the way, we've already sort of labeled you as the team spokesman. You've been voted team captain.
I don't know.
As we get started. But you said you're a young mother?
Yes.
Okay, sometimes
Yes.
you're home alone?
Sure,
And-
absolutely. And now especially I feel vulnerable.
Explain.
There's a lot of break-ins going on right now between 5 and 7 p.m. Where I live and in the next town over. And they're warning people, they're coming in and they're breaking in, make it look like somebody's home. Well, they now know that there's a gun there. Thank God they don't know what guns I have. So I feel
These
very...
criminals are smart. They're not,
Yes.
we think they
I
may
feel like
be
my
evil.
house is being watched by them,
You know that
probably.
the Journal News originally, when
Hang
they
on.
made the
Yeah.
request, request, they also wanted to know what guns people had. They were denied that
Yes.
information.
And they
They were
also-
going to publish that as well, along with everyone's names and addresses.
If
They
they're
also
looking for-
didn't publish police officers. A lot of police officers, but a lot of them did not
They
get
did?
published. There's certain ones
I
that
thought
did
they
not.
did. They did.
I know certain people that
Maybe
did
there's some
not.
that didn't get-
Maybe because
maybe they
it was
got missed.
older than 5 years, the permit.
You want to? Yeah. I'm not. We're not looking to disagree on it. We just want to get.
What
the facts
happened
out.
with the law enforcement officers is most law enforcement officers don't apply for a pistol license because they can carry on their shield. I've spoken with friends of mine who are state troopers and other police, and they were told by their unions, you don't need to have a license. That was your prerogative to get it. That's why we'd rather you didn't have it.
Let me ask another question here. The governor of New York gives this, the madness has to stop. He gives this big state of the state address. He wants New York to have the toughest gun laws in the country. By the way, Connecticut had one of the toughest gun laws in the country. But he used the word earlier, confiscation.
Sean, if I can speak to that.
Yes, go ahead.
As a senator from that area, people have to realize that this governor's on the record talking about confiscation, and people have got to get activated throughout the state of New York. There are bills out there right now that would send the state police to the doors of people who are now obeying the law, knock on that door, and turn those individuals into criminals. That's where this governor wants to go with that. When he's screeching at the top of his lungs that you don't need 10 bullets to kill a deer, the Second Amendment isn't just for deer season.
Wait a minute, this now becomes political. Will the Republicans, they have control of the Senate with their little...
But it's a coalition.
It's a coalition.
And I'm telling you right now that people need to get on that damn phone and they need to call their senators,
Will
Democrat,
they hold the
Republican,
line?
and hold the line. You're looking at one senator who's working every hour from now until next
To make
week
that-
to make sure that this governor's bill, which started as a gun confiscation bill, does not hit the floor of that Senate, and that we bring common sense to that legislation.
How many of you would disobey the law if the governor demanded you hand over your gun?
Off the record?
Immoral.
Off the record?
It's immoral.
It's immoral. You would. All right, we got a lot more to get to, and I promise we didn't get you guys in the back. It doesn't mean we love you any less. So we'll get to you in just a second here. And coming up, now that they have been outed, their lives put at risk, and their privacy trampled, is there any legal recourse? We'll check in with Judge Jeanine Pirro, who's also one of the people outed by the Journal News. She sounds off. She's going to tell our audience how they can fight back. And by the way, there's one other person who was outed as well. We'll tell you who that is straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. Now, the legal gun owners that you just heard from are asking what can they do to protect their right to privacy. And even I have now been impacted in recent weeks. A liberal left-wing entity published that I am, in fact, a law-abiding gun owner here in New York with a pistol carry permit. So is there any legal recourse that we can take? Joining me now to help explain how we can fight back is someone who was also herself outed by the Journal News, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Her show, Justice with Judge Jeanine, airs Saturday night right here on the Fox News channel on 9 p.m. This weekend, one of our producers, by the way, confronted the editor of the paper. Judge, how are you? Good to see you.
Terrific, thanks.
You were outed. This is not the first time for me. It's happened before.
It's not the first time for me either. In fact, I've said very proudly I'm a gun owner. But you see, the difference between me and so many other people, like a battered woman or a witness who's testified in a case where a defendant is sitting in prison waiting to get even with this person, is that I was a public official. I was an elected DA. I was an elected judge. I mean, you know, I understand what it means to be a public official, as you do.
I actually agree that I don't really mind in my case.
It's not about us.
It's not about us. Plus, my address wasn't given out. Everybody here in this audience.
Mine was.
In your case, you were, but everyone in the audience, they had their addresses given out. I mean, I think that makes it dangerous for them and for the people that don't own guns.
But it's even better because they did it in an interactive map. So it's not like it's just a printed address. It's like where they are in Westchester, in Rockland, you know, where they are in relation to the highway, basically how you get there. Then you link it and you can get the front of the house, the back of the house. It's an outrage. But what's more outrageous is that the Journal News, and I dealt with them for 30 years, they are in a hole. They are hiding. They're like a deer in the headlights. They are the purveyors of information, and they are unable to answer a question. People who called me over and over and over, we want answers. They follow your kids to school. They call you repeatedly. They come to your house. They talk to your friends. They are in a hole being protected by people with guns. This elitist, left-wing, egghead organization that is part of an anti-gun agenda is now hiding, and they are, in essence, the pinnacle of hypocrisy.
You were DA for how long?
I was DA for 12 years, assistant DA for 15 years, a county judge. I mean,
you've done it all, and you're still 28 years old. It's amazing. But in all seriousness, this is not an area that is crime-free.
Not at all.
You've dealt with pedophiles.
I prosecuted 40,000 cases a year in Westchester County.
That's the point.
It may be an affluent suburban community, but there are crime areas in the county just as there is in every other part of the country. And so the question that you're going to ask is, do you have a recourse? No. Right now, the answer is no. That information, your name and your address, is public. But what the Journal News wanted, Sean, was they wanted to know how many guns, what caliber of gun, what judge signed your permit. And by the way, I used to sign pistol permits as a judge. And make no mistake, to get a permit in New York State, you've got to comply with a background check that involves your criminal history, your reputation in the community, your mental health issues.
To get it.
It's not easy. I used to bring them in.
No, this is New York. It's very hard to get a gun permit here. What do you think the purpose was? I think to intimidate all the people here and all the people on that list. I think they had a very anti-Second Amendment agenda, and that's why they put this together. Right or wrong?
And I agree with you. I think the purpose was to intimidate, and I think they have intimidated a lot of people who are frightened, who are being held up to a lot of criticism. This is a very hot button issue, but what they're saying is our First Amendment is more important than your Second Amendment. The United States Supreme Court has made very clear that the Second Amendment that we read about in the Constitution is not just about the militia. It's about the ability of the individual to protect himself or herself, as we have just seen in cases in Georgia where a woman just learned how to use a gun and a guy's breaking into her house. The cops can't make it.
Let me put something on the screen. George Mason, as you know, and I'm sure everybody here, is the co-author of the Second Amendment. Interesting, right? Now, the left has been focused all over this word militia. And he co-authored the Second Amendment. And he says, I ask, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people. To disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Now, I think that kind of puts to rest what they meant by a well-regulated militia.
Well, there's no question, but it doesn't even matter what you mean, what the word militia means. I don't care if you think it means people from Mars. The bottom line is that the highest court in this nation has said
correct.
It's about the individual's right. And if they do it legally, and if there is a review, and if a judge has to sign that permit, shame on you. And I'm going to tell you something else. In 30 years in law enforcement, and I was a chief law enforcement officer of a county of 1 million people, I saw one murder with a legal gun. These murders and crimes are being committed with illegal guns. It's not the legal gun owners that they've outed here and here and here. It's the people who are running guns. And by the way, I'm not even going to go near what happened when we were running guns through the Mexican border.
You mean Operation
Fast and Furious?
Yeah. Well, it isn't. You all know this story? Oh, yeah. I mean, our government gives guns to drug dealers, murderers, criminals,
Mexican
kidnappers.
cartels.
Yeah, and they kill American agents, and then they won't tell us anything about it.
Right.
One of the things we're going to play later, Judge Deneen, we have a 911 tape, woman in Georgia, somebody breaks into her house, and we've got the tape, and she has to shoot this guy to protect her 9-year-old kids. What would happen if any of these people that are here experience that? That's what's at stake in this. And also the people that don't have guns, well, now every criminal in Westchester in the world knows they don't have the way to protect themselves.
Right.
Which house would you target?
I think I'd target the one without guns, or if I knew what the person wasn't working, I'd break into the house to get the guns if I'm a gangbanger or a drug dealer.
All right. Janine, thank you. Good to see you. And make sure, by the way, tune in this Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Fox News Channel, a special edition of Just This with Judge Janine, and her show confronted the Journal News editor, so you can tune in and find out how that all went down. Coming up next, while 2 New York area counties have already caved to the Journal, there is a group of brave Americans from Putnam County, and they are refusing to put their residents at risk, and they have turned down this newspaper's request. Now, officials from that county will tell us why they stood up to the Journal News and its left-wing agenda as Hannity continues. Thanks for being with us.
Get more Hannity as it happens. Go to HannityLive.foxnews.com during the show. Get exclusive backstage photos and videos, and find out what Sean says when the cameras aren't rolling. All at HannityLive.foxnews.com.
And welcome back to Hannity. Now, after the Journal News deliberately invaded the privacy of thousands of residents, officials from one New York county bravely stood up to the paper and refused to release any information about the residents in Putnam County in New York who lawfully possess a firearm. Are my next guests. The Putnam County officials held a press conference reiterating their position just last week. Let's take a listen.
I want the people of Putnam County to know that we firmly believe that the release of this information would create an unprecedented public safety issue. I will not retreat from protecting you, nor will I surrender.
I'm a man who follows the rule of law. We're not talking about the rule of law anymore. We're talking about endangering our citizens. I hope it wasn't just to sell newspapers and increase circulation by putting over 40,000 people in those 3 counties in jeopardy.
I'm not so sure that the Journal News hasn't violated a law when they've invaded the people's privacy and they've subjected them to safety.
Joining me now from Putnam County, the county clerk, Dennis Sant, and the county executive, Mary Ellen Odell. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you because I thought it was a very courageous stand, and you did it for the safety of your residents, and in spite of what had happened. Give us the background.
Well, we received a FOIL request, or actually our county clerk did. Mm-hmm. And we're very much a team in Putnam County. We consider ourselves to be, colleagues and protecting the people and upholding the law. And we looked at this and said, there's really no value to this. We felt that actually, if we did give that information out, we would be subjecting a lot of our constituents. We would be subjecting them to safety risks. So
good for you both. You got the request originally.
I got the request, and I sat on it for a few days. It was just before Christmas, and I noticed what happened in Rockland and Westchester County. My phone started ringing off the wall. We got 400 phone calls within 3 days of the published report, and I was listening to many horror stories. Women who had orders of protection against abusive husbands or spouses, And they were exempt and sealed as part of the law, and now they find their address and their name on a Google map. And if you've ever used Earth Google, you can get right into that backyard, right in the driveway.
It's a little scary.
Very
for
scary.
For a lot of people, and that's a separate issue in and of itself here. When you said no, what was the reaction?
From the
to
Journal,
the request?
From the Journal News? Well, we haven't delivered our formal refusal yet,
I
but
thought the press conference was pretty formal, but
yeah, well, I mean, we haven't done it in the legal format, and but you know, I just want to say that it was really a very quick response for both of us and our Deputy County Executive Bruce Walker.
This was a no-brainer for
the
you.
Invasion of privacy immediately. I mean, once you finished reading the requested paragraph, your instant reaction is, you know, this is a complete invasion of privacy, and with social media and social network and computer technology being what it is today, we realized quickly that information would just be just too much out in cyber, and there would be too much exposure.
Yeah. Well, right decision, obviously. What has been the reaction, by the way, from the people in Putnam County to your decision?
It's been wonderful. And matter of fact, I've gotten a great support from Westchester and Rockland County residents. But in Putnam County, they were just elated that we would want to protect their identity, their privacy, and keep them from harm's way.
And better than that.
And not just gun owners.
Oh, the non-gun owners were just as responsive as the gun owners.
But along those same lines, there's a great sense of pride from the constituents that I've spoken to. They're just very proud that their elected officials have taken this battle on. And, you know, Putnam County is a small county. You know, we are really only 50 miles north of New York City, but we're a very proud county. We have a lot of first responders, retired, active, military personnel. And they, you know, their concern runs deep, not only for all their career. They've been, you know, tasked with putting the bad guy.
Yeah,
and now the bad guy knows. And Rockland Sheriff commented on that there's taunting.
You felt there might be recourse. You disagree a little bit with Judge Janine. There might be recourse for the people who have been outed, some of whom are here with us.
I think we're on the right side of this.
No, meaning that do you think there's any recourse for those that were outed in these other counties?
Sure.
What is it?
Well, if at any time that there's any incident that has been as a direct result of that release of that information, they're responsible.
They're liable.
Clearly.
I would imagine.
Absolutely. Responsible and liable at this point.
And they knew what they were doing right from the beginning, Sean. They knew that they were making a sensation of a terrible tragedy of our neighbors just across the border. And they tried to intertwine that tragedy around to have a right to print this on Google Map. So they placed themselves in harm's way. And I would suggest the residents to follow up on that.
And I would suggest that they did this for profit, and you cannot use those names if it is for profit. That's case law. I think that what the county clerk said about they took advantage of a horrific story, they looked to sensationalize it, and they looked to amp their circulation, which is profit.
Not working, by the way. Had the opposite effect.
No, correct. A lot of the advertisements you see when you see the paper, a lot have been pulled.
I don't blame them. That's the free market. Guys, very brave decision, the right decision, and thank you both for being here. Appreciate
Thanks, Sean.
it.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
very
me.
much.
Appreciate
When we
it.
come back, a chilling 911 call, a woman, her 9-year-old twins, they literally were hiding in their house in a crawl space, an invader in their house, and she had to shoot him. We have it on tape. And a supporter of the Journal News will step into the lion's den and goes before our studio audience when we come back to defend the paper's actions, plus more with our studio audience as this very special Hannity continues. We're glad you're with us. Welcome back to the special audience edition of Hannity. Now, we have highlighted throughout the program the Journal News invasion of privacy of the rights of gun owners who have now been outed and the left's attempt to limit the Second Amendment. But my next guest has an entirely different opinion and is defending the Journal News. He's saying it was protected by the First Amendment. And I do give him a lot of credit, by the way, because I don't think our audience really is going to like him. But joining us right now is criminal defense attorney, former New Jersey prosecutor Jeff Gold. Welcome to the program, sir. Thank you for being here. I want to play a 911 tape. Woman in Georgia, just happened a little over a week ago. She has twin 9-year-olds. Guy breaks in with a crowbar. She goes into the crawl space of the house, hides, quiet. Husband, 911 on the line. Very chilling moment. Listen to this.
Is he in the house, Melinda? Are you sure? How do you know? You can hear him in the house. Melinda, if he opens that door, you shoot him, you understand? Just remember everything that I showed you, everything that I taught you, all right? Melinda, I'm on the phone with 911. They're dispatched right now. She shot him. She's shooting him. She's shooting him. She's shooting him. She's shooting him. Okay. Shoot him again. Shoot him. Oh, no.
And remember, he has 9-year-old twins. She's protected. She's in the crawl space. Broke into the house. Was that a good thing? She had a weapon in that house?
Sure.
It was a good thing.
Sure, it was a good thing.
So,
I mean, look, Sean, when I have a gun, I want a sign on the outside of my house that says, "I've got a gun, stay away." So there's a different way to look at it. Sometimes...
Wait. You do. Do all of you want a sign on the front of your house? Well,
it is a choice. You're right.
But they had no choice. They were outed. These people have no choice, and they feel that their lives are in greater danger now. Because now criminals know they have guns, and they also know where the people live that don't have guns.
Right, but the Journal News did a service. Now these legislators who are here in the audience, they're going to make sure that this law, this Open Public Records Act, has an exception for guns. So they've done a good service. I'm not saying which is right and which is wrong, but the sunshine of this law is a good thing. Now we know there's a problem with it. They'll fix it.
All right, so then you're not really defending it.
I am defending the First Amendment.
Well,
I'm defending the fact that they outed these people now.
The First Amendment is not absolute. Can I go into a crowded theater and yell fire?
But the Second Amendment isn't absolute either.
Can I go into a...
No, absolutely not.
I cannot go in.
Absolutely not.
So do we... Forget about even the legality of it. You know, if you work in the news business, was that the morally right decision by this newspaper to out these people and tell the criminals who has guns and who doesn't?
Well, you're assuming that the newspaper business is a moral one. It may not be. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they have the right to do what they did. Will some good come out of it? I think good will come out of it. And the Second Amendment is not absolute either.
Do you think good is coming out of this? No. They don't think. These are the people that are living it, so they don't believe you. So it's easy for you to say because you weren't one of them.
But I think they'll find out that good will come of it after this.
Oh, thank you for lecturing them.
Not lecturing. I think that they'll find that out. That's not me saying it.
Family is at risk right now, and that's wrong.
His family's at risk, is what he said.
I can take care of myself.
Look, there's two sides to that too. Every time you turn on the TV, you see our
two sides
babies
if you're
are
carrying
dying.
a gun.
I can't turn on the TV without seeing another shooting, another mass shooting. So you know what? There's two sides to it.
Illegal citizens.
Wait,
that's not us doing that.
I understand that. I agree with you.
That's not us doing those mass shootings,
So you attack the legal citizens.
No. I'm just saying they had a right to publish it and that some good will come out of it.
It's irresponsible.
They didn't have to publish it. Just because they had the right did not mean that they had to publish it.
But you know, the government knows all of this. Every one of you is identified.
The question we need to ask is what was the intent of this? And the intent of this, of whether or not you realize this, you are a bully and you are a pawn in the liberal media complex.
On his spot? Yes, sir. In the back, in the third row.
Sean, my name is Pat Storino. I'm a retired police officer and past president of the Westchester County Detectives Association and a member of the Affiliated Police Association of New York, an FBI and New York State certified police firearms instructor, and spent 23 years in law enforcement on the city, federal, and county level. And I can tell you that there's case law that came out in December of 2011. Judge Solomon in the New York Supreme Court, New York County, ruled in the New York Times versus the NYPD in an Article 78 FOIL action that active and retired law enforcement officers, not just NYPD, and active and retired government employees must be redacted from the list that the NYPD turned over to the New York Times in their FOIL action. That speaks volume towards case law and may work towards the pending legislation in the Assembly and Senate, which in its justification clearly says that the exposure of this information does the record holder, their families, and the public at large a great disservice and puts them at risk.
Let me dovetail off this, because this great point. Yeah, you can clap them. That's fine. You know, you're a lawyer. You argue for a living. You're obviously very good at what your job. You've been doing it for a long time. Sometimes things come down to just the right thing to do. Now, if I think with all the crime that we have in society and people that do not have weapons in their home, they now will be targeted by criminals. That will probably happen as a result of this. People that have guns, they might be targeted so somebody can go in and steal guns. Police officers that arrested people might now be in jeopardy if they're retired. They are on the list, some of them. And I just, you know, I listen to your arguments. You think you're sophisticated. And I'm thinking, where is your moral compass that you don't see that's wrong?
No, it's not a question of a moral compass. You have a First Amendment for a reason. It's the First Amendment.
You're giving me a technical answer.
Not technical. It's first for a reason. You know, do you think...
And this is second for a reason. Look, but that doesn't... But I'm asking you, right or wrong, the newspaper did not have to do this. And these people, and I argue, and people that don't have guns are in jeopardy. Why can't you see the outrage in that?
Because I don't think they're in as much jeopardy as you say.
Nice of you to just sit...
Last week there was a news conference in Rockland County where the local sheriff said his officers in the correctional facility are being approached by the incarcerated people and saying, "I know your address." Now, let me tell you, that's a heck of a scary thing.
That's a very scary thing. That's a good point. I'll let you respond to that. That's the real world. It's not just some abstract disagreement, argument that you're making in law school. These are real people, real lives, real families, real children that live in these homes. That's what is in play here.
Okay, but this has always been the case. In other words, anybody could have done this. Just because they did it now and have the bright light on it means that it can be fixed. But it could have been done before. This isn't something
The damage has been done. You can't
You
put
wouldn't
the
know
genie
that
back
unless
in the
somebody
bottle.
did it. Now they've done it. Now we can
Why do
address
I think you'd feel differently if it was your family? Somebody puts your name, your family.
I tell you, I want a sign on my house that says I have a gun.
You want a sign.
Stay away.
Then you put your sign up and leave these people alone. How's that? All right. Yeah. All right. And coming up next, well, you just heard the other side of the argument. So what does our audience think? Does the First Amendment argument supersede their right to privacy just because, well, it may be legal? Does it make it morally right? We're going to go back to our studio audience. They will respond to this next, straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. We continue now with our audience comprised of law-abiding New York gun owners. Their names and addresses were published by the Journal News. All right, you just heard the other side of this debate. How does that make you feel?
I just want to make a comment about the Rockland County Sheriff's Department. I recently retired from there after 20-some-odd years as a detective, and I've spent most of my career trying to keep my name, my address, my family off of Facebook, off of everything.
Me too. It hasn't worked.
Right. Well, it did for me until just the other day.
So that hurts, because a lot of criminals know who you are.
Yeah, and now
that
they
makes
know
it
where
very
I live.
hard.
Yeah. So
yeah. I worry about that a lot because these guys, and you were making that point, they put their lives on the line, and now you're in jeopardy.
Right.
That's scary, and your kids and your family.
That's right. That's correct.
Sir, we haven't heard from you yet. Yeah.
I was a New York City detective for quite a few years, and I put a lot of very bad people away. And I don't know how many of those people still carry a grudge. They know my name. Now they know where I live.
Sean, you said the Pinhead from representing the Journal News said that these guys shouldn't worry, that these guys shouldn't be scared.
It's easy for him to say.
But guess what? As soon as the names and the addresses of the editors from the Journal News got out, now they're running to beat John Wayne to the NRA membership drive. They've got armed guards.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
You know, I mean, it's amazing how when stuff starts to turn, how, there's a great awakening, why people's privacy. You know, they're all on the First Amendment.
Oh, I agree. This is like these Hollywood hypocrites. They fly around in their own private jets, but they lecture us about our SUVs.
You mean Al Gore?
Al Gore, yes, ma'am.
Al Gore.
Al Jazeera Gore, yes. But to think about this, Hollywood stars, they can afford armed bodyguards. Rightly so. We protect our president, we protect our mayors, we protect our cabinet officials and politicians. I think that's the right thing to do.
We should protect everybody.
Everybody. But the average person does not have the money for an armed guard.
Right.
And that's what's dangerous. Yes, sir. You wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, I wanted to bring in, you brought up before about the governor's confiscation bill. In Nazi Germany, they had a propaganda magazine called Der Stürmer. They had an article that they titled The Jew Next Door. The Journal News, their article was titled The Gun Owner Next Door. The Germans registered every gun. That's what the governor wants to do. And they confiscated every gun. The governor's talking about a confiscation. These are scary times.
And
that is
Sean, it's that fear-mongering headline that had no nexus whatsoever to the article, which many high school newspapers would reject because there was no substance whatsoever in the article, and they let the map stand on its own.
How many think this
And
is
I
about
thought that was unethical. I contacted the Gannett ethics officer, and you know what?
Yeah.
They said that they handle whistleblowers and they reward whistleblowers, that they could do nothing about this. I let them know that an article that followed, the frequently asked questions article, in which they claimed that this list couldn't be downloaded or used for any commercial or soliciting purpose, that I had the list in my possession, that I had over 16,000 names and addresses.
Yeah.
All right? And they didn't want to know anything about it.
Let me get to these people who haven't spoken yet. In the back, thank you for your patience. Yes, sir.
A newspaper, as far as I'm concerned, is supposed to report news, not make news. And that's what that's what's been done here. They just made news.
Unless they're
That's
feeding,
good. Yeah, sir.
Unless they're feeding, there's a reason, there's an agenda for it. And they're creating a divide right now. They've created it's a sense of us versus them. The people that are gun collectors, the hunters, the shooters, the people out there that are lawful, law-abiding citizens that have the weapons, and the other people that are saying, no, we don't want this. Now you've created such a rift in between the two. The media's been running wild, calling us, demonizing us.
It's amazing. Well, how many, just to show here, how many think that all this discussion about gun control is to exploit a tragedy by politicians? You all agree with that?
But John, it's going to backfire on him.
Yeah.
Cuomo, who may want to
hang on, we don't have a mic on you yet. Go ahead.
It's going to backfire. Cuomo, who may want to be president, is now not going to be president.
I think that's true.
Because he doesn't live in New York. Right. New York is different than the rest of the country, and I think a lot of independents are going to be waking up to the fact that.
You know what's amazing? Joe Biden made this as he pushed the idea that they'd bypass Congress, which we can get into the political side of this in our next segment. But he also said, it's an argument that liberals often use, that if only one life is saved. Well, I can save one life right now, and I could take everybody's car away. We can take everybody's airplane away. We can take hammers away. We could take baseball bats away. What's that?
Hammers.
Yeah, blunt instruments, hammers, bats are used more often than rifles to kill people every year. Al Sharpton said he wants knife control if there was ever an incident with knives.
And assault rifles are only a small portion of those 363 or whatever the number is rifle deaths.
I'm going to pick up from that point when we get back. We'll take a break. You haven't spoken yet. You're very shy back there. I'm going to bring you in. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back more with our studio audience, and we'll get their closing thoughts as we continue. And as always, thank you for being with us. And welcome back to Hannity. We continue now with our studio audience. It's made up of gun owners who were outed by the Journal News. All right, some of you we've not heard from. You are very quiet. I really want to know, you've been listening to all this, your reaction.
We had no choice. We were just outed by the Journal News. There was no opt-in. There was no opt-out. They just put it out there. I'm self-employed. I work from home. If somebody's watching my house, it looks like everybody's gone and there's nobody home. I'm home. I'm home all day. I'm home alone. Now I feel like every time a car is slowing down in front of the house, is it somebody just turn it around? Are they watching the house?
Do you find that you
terrifying.
have the gun closer now because you feel the danger is greater?
Yes, when I'm in the house alone.
Yeah. And you're married to him?
Yes.
He married way up.
Probably. Well, I wanted to know about the PIN map. What was, I don't know if you know, but both of us have licenses, and I just want to let you know that gun owners are the most intelligent and they are the most trained in guns. So you really want us around. But what happened with the PIN map is that not everybody in the household was named to have on the Journal News. So that meant that their intent was just to show where you lived. So if there's 2 or 3 gun owners in your house, they did not necessarily list you on that list.
It targeted our home. It names me. It doesn't name
targeted
him.
our house. They wanted to know where you were on that block.
That's scary.
But my name.
Look, one of the things that frustrates me, remember Rahm Emanuel said, never let a crisis go to waste. Well, okay, here's one. But here's the problem. It's how many of you agree this will not solve the problem? Do you all agree with that?
Yeah.
Everyone agrees. If the next, let's say they ban assault weapons, and the next shooting incident is a guy that comes in with 5 pistols wrapped around his thing, and he takes them one out right after another, then they're going to ban pistols? Right?
It's a slippery slope.
It's slippery. Denise.
That's what it is. And I'm tired of the elites telling we the people what to do, how to do, and when. And it's a good thing you're doing this special. Thank you so much, because people are outraged about this.
Yeah. So what's the next step? Do you think their ultimate goal is to disarm the American people?
Absolutely.
You all agree?
Sean, this is, yes, it's about intimidation, but it really goes beyond that, because it's intimidation, then it's registration, then it's confiscation. They're talking about it right now. And, you know, all these people want to ban these evil, AR-15s, and I'm Jewish. And I think what would the German Jews done with a whole bunch of AR-15s and stockpiles of weapons? They wouldn't have been murdered, and that cuts deep in my community.
It's interesting, as you study the founders and framers, they were very clear. They weren't talking about shooting Bambi or hunting. They were talking about protecting yourself against tyranny and government. They were radical. But if you say that
and we're
today,
somehow crazy for thinking that it's going to happen. It happened to the Armenians.
Germany,
it happened to the Germans.
French,
it happened in China.
Italy,
it happened in Uganda.
Spain,
I mean,
Japan,
it always
again and
starts
again.
with disarmament.
All right, let me point out one statistic.
If you give up one right,
you start to give up all rights. Where do you stop?
The CD, Centers for Disease Control and the CDC, they reviewed 51 published studies, and I wrote this down, about the effectiveness of gun control laws, 8 types of them. They found it was insufficient evidence. The Department of Justice looked at the Clinton ban, the assault weapons ban. They found it was not effective. You were saying something to me during the break. I wanted to give you a chance to say that.
One of the points that I made was that Journal News has never explained why. They've never given a valid reason for doing this. So you have 2 issues at hand with the consequences of what they did. You have number one, over 95% of all gun crime are committed with illegal guns. So you just gave a shopping list to all the criminals who need a new gun. Number 2, you expose all the people who don't to home invasion, who aren't protected. But the third question is the real reason why they did it. The real reason why they did it is to embarrass people, to expose neighbor against neighbor.
Scarlet G. That was what Scarlet we didn't run it tonight, and I should have, but that's what Eric Holder said. Ma'am, I'm not going to let you leave here without talking tonight. I know you've been very quiet and shy, but thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I just find it ridiculous that they're posting my name and my address. What about the people who've been arrested with illegal guns? Why don't you post their addresses? We should be more afraid of them.
Because we don't know those.
Yeah, true.
Now think about that. The people that didn't go through the year-long process, it took about a year for all of you to get a permit.
But those have been
2 years for you?
arrested.
They have names of sex offenders, though. They could be publishing those on a map.
Yeah, what about liberals, the right to privacy? Right?
The worst thing that we're going to see right now as a legislator is, and I disagree with Mr. Gold on this, yes, you're going to see bills coming from the Senate and from the Assembly that are going to protect us in this manner, but they're going to be coupled with gun control laws that are going to be hideous to us, that are going to be it's going to come as a package, and that is the way that it's going to get passed.
All right, we're out of time. Give yourselves a big hand. Thank you all for coming, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you all. And that is all the time we have left for this week. Let not your heart be troubled. We'll be back on Monday, and I hope you have a great weekend.